This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Daws.
Hello.
You can't help but dance to that. Well, I can't.
No,
help but
I was watching you dance there while the theme tune was playing.
Just as well my children aren't watching this because that tends to make them cringe.
I'll put it on YouTube, don't worry.
Huh?
That will go on YouTube, don't worry.
That's my exercise. See, you can't actually... Are you recording that when the titles are going over?
I'm not, no, but the joke doesn't work if I say otherwise.
See. Anyway, I'm not going to recreate them now for those who are watching. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Partners in Crime on this, third week of January, and an incredibly important day.
Yeah.
Not necessarily from a point of crime fiction, but some would argue from the point of crime. See, Bob, I know the last day of President Trump's presidency. In fact, counting down the hours, less than 4 hours. I know this is going out later in the week for most people, but yes, so I'm going to be glued to that after I finish talking, doing this podcast. He's gone.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes. Well, we've
not for everyone, I agree, but
I will say up front, I think we've got some horrible delay on the line by the looks of things. So apologies for anybody listening. It seems that things are and this is the issue with lockdowns and things. I'm afraid we're trying our very hardest to bring this podcast to you each week, but I think there is a bit of delay. But yes, as you were saying, Bob, we're recording this on the Wednesday, so if we happen to not mention civil wars or anything that's broken out between then and Friday, that is why it hasn't actually happened yet, although widely expected.
Well, I've been reading one of my book recommendations is nothing to do with crime, but it's one about the Trump family, actually.
So quite a lot to do with crime then.
Absolutely, but it's by his niece, a strange niece, and there's no surprise about that after reading this book. She's a fine psychologist. Her name's Mary Trump, and she's written a book called Too Much and Never Enough, her experiences of her family. And I think of all the books I've read over the last 4 years about Trump, trying to explain Trump and the way he operates, this is certainly the most enlightening. I think it's, and she's a psychologist, so she tends to know what she speaks. But I thoroughly recommend it. It's a wonderful book, and even for people interested in crime and crime writing or whatever, because there's a psychological breakdown of how perhaps a narcissistic sociopath is not necessarily born, but created at the hands of their family. It's very well written. It's the Trump family. Donald Trump has said, well, she was left out of my late elder brother's will, and that's why she's got this axe to grind. Well, I'm sure she has, but when you read the book, you begin to understand why that axe has probably been grinding for as long as it has. But I think she gives a pretty honest account, albeit from her own point of view, of course, of how Donald Trump works, which explains an awful lot about the way his presidency he's managed his presidency, and why perhaps it has ended in such ignominy and distress and chaos. So there we are.
This is Mary Trump, is it? The book.
This is Mary Trump.
Mary Trump.
Her book. You can get it on Kobo. Too Much and Never Enough. It's not a crime fiction. It's not a true crime. Well, it could maybe come under reference books if one's interested in true crimes.
Well,
depending on which side of the political spectrum you're standing.
Oh, hold that thought, because I've been reading this week as well. In the run up to this week, nice bit of advertising there, Bob. I can see you drinking out your Hobeck mug. As they say, we are recording on 20th of January, Inauguration Day, and I've been reading in the run up to this little book, which is certainly not a new one by any stretch of the imagination. It's All the President's Men by Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, the journalists who broke the Watergate story and got to the bottom of that, which saw the downfall of President Richard Nixon, who was thought to have been the most corrupt American president of all time. But Trump does like breaking records. So this is it's a hefty read, I would say, especially if you're not into American politics, and it is very it follows the process of what happened how that story was broken, the break-in at the Democratic DNC
Watergate building,
offices in
yes.
Watergate, and how that all led to the downfall of Nixon. It's very interesting from the people who broke that story, and of course, clearly crime, true life, real crime. No murders that we know of, but yeah, very, very interesting book. So I think it was from I think it was actually released a year after or something like that. This book.
Well, they were extraordinary,
1974.
and also produced that brilliant film with Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman as Bernstein and Woodward, and Deep Throat. You know, the whistleblower who'd meet in the car park, the underground car park, to give the reporters the update on what have you. But so much of that, which in that time, in Nixon's time, seemed extraordinary and impossible to believe that someone could actually behave in such a manner to hang on to power and to increase power, has just become the norm over recent years. And I read Bob Woodward's latest book, which he wrote after spending time with Donald Trump during his presidency. And he apparently had carte blanche to write what he wanted, and didn't stop Trump absolutely knocking his book and saying, "How dare he say that about me?" Because I think one begins to realise that Donald Trump always thinks that people are going to observe his wondrous genius as opposed to any negative sides that might.
How dare everybody keep seeing these bad things in me?
Well, it's it's a repetition in his character that's come many, many times over the years, and so it is. There we are. I mean, a great book, that, and one of my favourite films of all time. Actually, I have to say, I think it's a terrific film. So there we are. We're into our American. Well, we're doffing our cap to the hopeful continuation and smooth transition of America's politics. Why should we be as interested in it as we are in Mid Bedfordshire? Well, it's because we are, as not many people. There are many people who don't like the idea, but we live in a shrinking planet, and what happens with one of the largest nations in the world has great influence over us, and none more so than
We've already seen our government
America.
and things changing direction in this country as soon as Biden won the election. You know, there's U-turns and things happening all over the place here to try and ingratiate ourselves to them.
Yes.
So,
well, I mean, we could spend the rest of the podcast
Yes,
and probably
let's
the
not.
rest of the year talking about rotting fish in lorries and goodness knows what else goes on, and all this before, as usual, you know, the appalling conditions in which people are fighting for their lives, and people are fighting to save people's lives, and the deprivations and uncertainties that lockdown and a lack of any finances coming into a house. Talk to me about that.
says the man who's just done a film with Liz Hurley.
Well, yes, but they don't pay like they used to. But anyway, nothing pays like it used to.
No,
I was saying this the
no.
other day. This is a moan. Actually, but with the increases in actors' wages, certainly in television and film, they've actually gone down. There was a report out at the middle of last year that most actors working in film and television are being paid considerably less than once they did. I'm not talking about the big stars, of course, but I'm talking about the jobbing actor is being paid far less. So there we are. It's no one asked us to go into that profession, but so I'm not. There's no self-pity going on here. That's the way it is. But we're all getting through as best we can, and all we can pray for is our good health. And I hope all our listeners are enjoying good health and are not. And getting through lockdown and survival mode as best they possibly can. Right, some crime fiction. What have you got?
Well, speaking of our listeners and people who are doing very well, we announced last week 5 people who won the Partners in Crime Christmas episode competition, and they won free books and e-readers and things. I read out the names, but I couldn't, didn't read
Match
out
the
who
prize to the name.
because a couple hadn't responded, and I didn't want to say yes, they've got that one, and then have to actually go, actually we've got to give it to somebody else because they've not got back to us. But everybody did get back to us in the end. So the winner of the Kobo Nia device, kindly donated to us by Kobo, was Trevor Smith. That is now on its way to him as we speak. Your copy of your hardback, Bob, of whatever that book was that you decided to send out to them, was one by Julie Benson, and that is on its way to her at the moment. A copy of Alison, A.B. Morgan's book. I can't remember
Alison
the name
Morgan,
of it now.
yeah. Yes.
That's on its way to Robin Murray over in, I think he's in the States. And
He is in the States, indeed.
of-
In fact, I have got a book here because he entered the Hobeck for my hardback competition. There are two books here. One
He's doing all right at the moment, isn't he?
In Gibraltar, and one in. Well, of course, I've been up to the post office twice. And attempted to post it. I don't know why I went the second. I just happened to be passing with them and found them in my bag. And you just can't send anything abroad. We mentioned this last podcast. It's very frustrating. So apologies to anyone expecting.
Oh, Bob's frozen, which is wonderful, which is nice because it means I get to talk again. But I'll let you know when he comes back. He's frozen on my screen. He's frozen on my audio. So the other two winners that we saw on the Christmas episode, the winners of the Night in Culver House 10th book, the paperback of Snakes and Ladders, my book, were Karen McLean and Peter Chamberlain. So well done to them. They are the 5 winners: Trevor Smith, Judy Benson, Karen McLean, Robin Murray and Peter Chamberlain. Well done to everybody. Bob is still frozen on my screen, so not quite sure when he's coming back. We will hopefully get him back shortly. But in the meantime, hello to Helen Lloyd, who is a brand new patron to Partners in Crime. Patrons get early access to every episode of Partners in Crime, and they get to watch it in full HD video as well, as you will know if you are one, because you may well be watching this now. They also get access to an extra bonus episode each week, Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace, as well as a shout out on the show, as Helen had just a moment ago there, and access to exclusive content, including a free book every single month, courtesy of Kobo. Now, I'll go through the book of the month this month a little bit later on in the show, but we'd love for you to be our next patron, please. If you like the sound of that, you can join today at patreon.com/Partners in Crime podcast, or follow the link in the show notes. Now, I'm going to give Bob a few moments to come back in. Apologies for any technical difficulties we're having. As we explained a few times on Partners in Crime recently, we're recording this in lockdown, even though Bob and I live about half a mile away from each other. We've been doing most of the episodes for the last year remotely. There's all sorts of issues with that. I know Bob's got his daughters doing downloading and uploading and all sorts going on, but here he is. Hello.
I think I'm back.
Yes, well, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can see you. I can see me.
Oh, well, there we go. Your audio is crackling a little bit, so I'm going to move on with the first news story that I had here, which was one that popped up in The Guardian, actually, a couple of weeks ago, which was a celebration of Patricia Highsmith's 100th birthday. Of course, it's not actually her birthday because she's dead. She died in 1995, and an article written by Carmen Maria Mercado in The Guardian, which says there's always been something fundamentally difficult about Patricia Highsmith. And she says, I mean, truly, legitimately difficult, a well of darkness with no discernible bottom. It goes on to say that she was a genius, a bona fide eccentric. Patricia Highsmith, it says here, loved animals, particularly snails, which she kept by the hundred as pets. And is that a good time for you to come back in there, Bob?
Is it a good time? All I heard was particularly snails.
Yes, we're talking about Patricia Highsmith, the celebration of her 100th birthday. There's an article in The Guardian which says she loved animals, particularly snails, which she kept by the hundred as pets and took to parties clinging to a leaf of lettuce in her handbag. Writer and critic Terry Castle describes how Highsmith once smuggled her cherished pet snails through French customs by hiding 6 or 8 of them under each bosom.
Well, I'm sort of, I don't know whether I'm glad I came back at that point. I should have possibly delayed. I've obviously been missing the most scintillating latest gossip and news on the crime fiction front, so well done. Snails.
Yes, but it does go on, it does turn a little bit darker, as things do with Patricia Highsmith. It says here...
snails do. Carry on.
It says, and yet she was a hateful person. This is to celebrate her 100th birthday. She was shockingly, it says, unrepentantly racist and anti-Semitic,
Oh.
even with respect to the era in which she lived. She believed gay people were essentially unfaithful and promiscuous and incapable of true sexual passion. She had a nasty habit of murdering versions of her ex-lovers in her fiction. She believed menstruating women should not be permitted in libraries. This mix of misogyny and homophobia coming from a gay woman might seem surprising, it says. The truth was, while she didn't like other people, she didn't much like herself either. It's an interesting article. It states that she was clearly a genius and wrote brilliant books, but perhaps not the nicest person in the world. And it says Terry Castle.
Books, that's for sure. Yes.
Yeah. It says here halfway through the article, what does it mean to love the work of an author Terry Castle describes as the doyen of the psychological suspense novel, depressive homosexual, mean drunk, and one of the greatest, darkest American storytellers since Poe. So, Bob, essentially what I want to know is, can we separate the author from the books? How easy is it to do that? I say that as somebody who, I must say, finds that very difficult. There are some authors who I have read and who I have since found out are not the nicest people, and that does stop me from enjoying their books, I must say.
Yes, I can understand that. It's always it's a disappointment. It's a similar thing with acting, really. You know, you actually sort of like an actor's performances, he or she, and then you find out that they're really unpleasant in the same, whole views that are not your own. I was
going to say Lawrence Fox isn't working much this year, is he?
Sorry?
Said Lawrence Fox isn't working much at the moment.
Well, I mean, talk about digging your own. What's it, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's, yes. Would it influence me? If I'm honest, I think it probably would, and probably does, to some degree. And I don't like that thought. But it's very hard to know something about someone and then start reading maybe things that you've missed or lines in a book that you've picked up and can interpret in a different way because you know more about the author. It's interesting. I've said this about something that Judi Dench has said many times enough. She says she thinks it's far better for actors to not reveal an awful lot about themselves in the way that celebrities do and actors do. This constant need for tidbits and histories and everything about how actors are, because she says it gets in the way of a performance, and maybe that should be, you should do the Salinger on it and just keep yourself completely out of it and let people read the books or watch your performances or listen to your music without any influence or knowledge about what the person who wrote it thinks or does.
I can understand that.
And craft stands in its own right for you to interpret as you wish.
I can understand that. And yeah, I do agree. And then you see people like, for example, Marcus Rashford, who, for people who might not be aware, is an England and Manchester United footballer.
I will be watching him this evening if he's playing against Fulham.
He's been very, very loud over the last year or two about the way that the government here have been treating children living in poverty and whose families can't afford to feed them. And he's been standing up and doing a lot and has influenced on at least one or two occasions, if not more, government policy, and has changed the route for these children through speaking out because of his platform. If he was just a guy from Manchester gobbing off on Twitter, would he have made those changes? Possibly not. I think the fact he has got those platform, was able to make those changes, is undoubtedly a good thing. So yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And of course, there will be people who say, "Well, I'm not going to like that Marcus Rashford anymore because look at him, the horrible man helping ensure that those starving children are fed." But there will be people out there who think that way, I'm sure.
Yes, well, we live in a strange divided times.
Yes.
But anyway,
we're getting very political today, aren't we?
Sorry,
we're getting very political today. We're moving.
We are.
We're going to have to.
I mean, we've got COVID, which is a huge international medical disaster, but it has, the way it's been handled has sort of brings politics to the floor. We've got to the fore. We've got Brexit, sort of obviously shadowed by COVID and breaking down left, right, and centre. Although, it seems to me, and there are teething problems, I suppose, to all things. But these things that are coming through seem to be more than just simple teething problems. They seem to be at the heart of the deal that was made. So that's all political. We've got America, as we've already covered, or whatever. So we live in political times. So I suppose
Politics is life, crime is life, and crime is heavily intertwined with crime fiction is heavily socio-political, isn't it? We've said this a number of times over the last 100
Well, it'll be interesting to see how
episodes.
these times influence writing of all kinds, of all literature and crime writing, whether people setting their books in these particular turbulent times refer to it or avoid mention of it and set it in a world completely apart from the frictions and troubles that now exist. So we'll see how politics influences crime writers, I suppose, over the next year as books are revealed. But as you mentioned, this is a little segue. As you mentioned, Patricia Highsmith, I read Mark Sanderson in the Times, who's a very fine crime critic for the Times Crime Club, I think, and he sort of came up with a blast from the past, a book I haven't read, but I'm actually just ordered because I want to read it again, and that is A Kiss Before Dying by Ira Levin. Ira Levin is the author of The Boys from Brazil, the book and film, A Kiss Before Dying, Silver, The Stepford Wives, and other bestsellers, as well as Broadway's longest-running thriller, Death Trap, which has often been done in this country, last by Simon Russell Beale in the West End. He has won 2 Edgar Awards for the Mystery Writers of America and the Bram Stoker Award for Lifetime Achievements from the Horror Writers Association. He's won those, but unfortunately for him in particular, he died in 2007. So his book, A Kiss Before Dying, and now I've seen the film, which is a terrific film starring Robert Wagner, who's got his own particular problems regarding potential crime at the moment. The investigation into the death of Natalie Wood, his wife, has just started a re-investigation in California, I believe. But anyway, A Kiss Before Dying. Dorothy meets a handsome young man with an eye for her inheritance while she is in her sophomore year. They are to be married and her life will be blissful. But Dorothy is pregnant and her fiancé's plans are ruined, for Dorothy would be disinherited if her father discovered the truth. So the young man provides his bride-to-be with some pills that will solve the problem. Soon there will be no baby, and perhaps no Dorothy either. A Kiss Before Dying, Levin's first novel, earned him the 1954 Edgar Award for Best First Novel and is regarded as a modern classic. The New York Times says, here is not merely an extraordinary first, but an extraordinary suspense novel by the highest professional standards. Mark Sanderson in the Times, and follow him on tweet, deals with this, as well as this week, the new Stuart McBride book, which sounds absolutely fascinating, whose name I can't remember offhand, but look up Stuart McBride on Kobo, and you will find what his latest book is. So there we are. Ira Levin, a blast from the past, a crime fiction classic, possibly worth revisiting.
Excellent. If you do fancy getting hold of that, or any other books in fact, it's worth considering. Partners in Crime is gratefully sponsored by Kobo, one of the world's largest ebook retailers. As a listener to Partners in Crime, you can get a massive 90% off of your first ebook purchase from Kobo. You don't need an e-reader or any special device, although they are very, very good. You can even read on your phone or tablet if you wish. Just head over to kobo.com and enter the promo code CRIME at checkout. If you're an existing customer, follow the link in our show notes and use the promo code PARTNERS to get 40% off of selected ebook purchases for life. And I was mentioning, Bob, while you were disappearing in and out earlier and doing the hokey cokey, that Partners in Crime patrons get access to, amongst other things, a free book of the month. This month, they're getting 4 free books because the free book of the month from Kobo is the Hannah DeRose Mysteries box set by Katie Bowles. The first 4 books in that series you get completely free. So if you're a Partners in Crime patron, log into your dashboard and have a look for that post, which was posted about a week ago now. And if you're not an existing patron, then do check out the link in the show notes and see if it might be for you, because your support is enormously appreciated. On to more stuff in the news. We spoke last week briefly, Bob, about the Pembrokeshire murders.
Yes, we did.
There was an article in The Independent that said this month has already been a big one for true crime. BBC One's 8-part crime drama The Serpent, based on the real-life murders of 70s hippie trail serial killer Charles Sobrage, premiered on New Year's Day, quickly followed by ITV's 3-parter The Pembrokeshire Murders, about 2 double killings committed in the 80s. Last Wednesday saw the launch of The Night Stalker, The Hunt for a Serial Killer, Netflix's 4-part docuseries on 80s mass murderer Richard Ramirez. And if that's not enough real-life tragedy for you, it says here in The Independent, the streaming giant has just announced another documentary crime scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil House, which will bring the 2013 disappearance of 21-year-old Elisa Lam in LA to the small screen. And now that's a fascinating story, I've got to say. It says these shows have faced critiques from some who note that many of the stories centre around the murders of women, and yet the dramas keep coming. What is it about the format, it says here, that is so unwaveringly successful? Interesting article, worth seeking that one out in The Independent. And the disappearance of Elisa Lam, if you're not familiar with that story, do look it up. It is bizarre and scary and odd. So yeah, crime scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil House, will appear soon on Netflix. I'm very much looking forward to that one.
Well, I've got a recommendation, a television recommendation now, and I take it very highly because it was recommended to me by Carla, who operates one of the tills at my local Waitrose. And Carla very often has her finger on the pulse, and she said to me the other day, "Have you seen that Lupin on Netflix?" And I said, "No, I've heard about it."
Spoilt it for me. Go on. Yes, go on.
Oh, no. Have I spoilt it for you?
No, that's fine. What we'll do is we'll segue it. We'll do this one together. Go on, you start.
Oh, okay then. Okay. Well, so Adrian Norton in The Guardian likes this very much indeed. One thing I do know about it is that the first series of Lupin has been split into 2. So I think there are only about 5 or 6 episodes in the first part, and Netflix is showing the rest of the series later on in the year, which is quite strange. They obviously wanted to spread it out, but it's been a huge success. And Adrian Norton says the greatest trick by Lupin, a new French series on Netflix, is disguising substantiveness in plain sight. The show, created by the British showrunner George Kay and inspired by the beloved French character Arsène Lupin, packages over 115 years of inspiration dating back to the character's invention by writer Maurice Leblanc in 1905. In a slick, swift escape easily binged in a day, it stars the French actor Omar Sy, who towers over his scene partners, perpetually unreadable yet brimming with charisma. So Lupin follows in the footsteps of breakout global hits such as Money Heist, a fantastic Money Heist, far and away Netflix's most popular global show, viewed by 65 million households. But in the biggest draw, of course, is The Gentleman Con. Lupin won't win any awards for its production or writing, won't it? Okay. But any viewer knows that's not the point. The hook is in the Hollywood slickness of Assange scheming and the illusion of dauntless competency under pressure. It's tried and true TV genre. It certainly is. Think of the icy schemer Tommy Shelby in the British gangster series Peaky Blinders. It's a refreshing twist on an old-fashioned character within a long-standing genre, one that takes little to surrender to. Each episode concludes with a kick in which Hassan reveals his hand to reframe the episode's prior events as a cascade of aspirational calm, expert planning and total control. Lupin's greatest talent, without a doubt, was to always be one step ahead. Lupin combines the verve of Ocean's 11 with the thrilling implausibility and cultural lore of the first national treasure. Well, it looks as if Adrian Norton there agrees with Carla from Waitrose. And that
who
is
doesn't?
going to be, as soon as I finish Series 8 of Spiral, I will be in need of some French drama and to sort of deal with my grieving, really. That's what it will be. No more L'Orbeteau or Gilou or Judge Robin. So I'm looking to Lupin to guide me through those my time in the wilderness with a new stunning French drama series based, as it says, on an old classic.
Indeed. Were you aware?
Segue that if you can.
Okay, were you aware that Lupin has made Netflix history just this week?
I wasn't aware.
Well, there you go. Days after its global debut on Netflix, the heist thriller Lupin has infiltrated a forbidden area that has thus far proven off limits to French content. The US Netflix top 10 list, it says here in looper.com. The show entered the list at number 8, jumped to number 6 on January the 9th, and then moved to number 3 on January the 10th, according to Deadline. It's held that spot in the US since then, but continues to climb globally and overtook Bridgerton at the top of the worldwide rankings just last week. So it's third spot in the US still, but number 1 worldwide. And everything else, basically, you've already said. So.
Well, that's quite interesting, really. I wonder whether Netflix will actually bring forward the second half of the series. If the demand is so high for it, I mean, it would make sense, wouldn't it? If people are chomping at the bit to continue with the series, they may actually bring that forward. But anyway, so I'll be starting that. When do I finish Spiral? I'm scheduled to finish Spiral on Grenache before the end of the week, after we've got the inauguration over and Manchester United against Fulham. I must point out that I'm not really a supporter of Manchester
where's this come
United,
from?
but I have a good friend who is, and no, I'm a West Ham man. Really, if we're going to talk football, which I, as you well know, rarely do.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk football.
Let's talk football. Well, I'll be watching. It's the FA Cup match at the weekend. Manchester United will be playing Liverpool again. They had a 0-0 draw last weekend, which kept Manchester United at the top of the Premier League. I've yet to look at last night's score because I want to see how Leicester got on, because if they won, then they would be at the top of the league. So I'm told. I know nothing about it. I'm like John Thompson's character in the Far Show. Come on, you Blues.
Where's all this coming from? Have you been really bored during lockdown? There's suddenly become a massive football fan.
If you must know, my daughter's boyfriend Tom is a Manchester United fan. My nephew Jamie is a Manchester. I'm surrounded by Manchester United fans, and it's tough playing Liverpool last weekend and playing Liverpool this weekend, because this is a Liverpool house. Because my wife's family are Liverpudlian, and so we always look very kindly on Liverpool as a team.
I can imagine that, the Liverpool scarves and shirts just hanging everywhere, and you just sitting there in your West Ham pants.
In my West Ham kit, with people saying, "Do you support Aston Villa?" Because they're pretty much the same colours. Anyway, yes, no, but I did get invited. I'm mentioning Waitrose again. Not that I can really afford to shop in Waitrose for much longer. I went to Waitrose the other day, and there was a chap there. He said, "Hello, Bob." He said, we got chatting away. He said, well, I'm looking forward to this lockdown over to see some football. And he goes to see West Ham play live at the old Olympic stadium, well, the new Olympic Stadium. And I pointed out, I said, well, I support West Ham too, but I've never actually been to see a live match. I've been invited many times and often, but never have done. So I think one of the things that might transpire when this dreadful lockdown and the coronavirus is put to bed at last, hopefully, please God, is that I'll be going to see West Ham play a football match. So, do you know what? Never say never.
I'd rather be in lockdown, frankly.
Well, exactly. Many people would. And for many years, decades, I'd say the same. I'm a rugby, I'm a cricket man. I'm not a great sporting.
No, I mean, I enjoy watching football. I just don't want to go and watch West Ham.
No. Well, you see, they're good London club.
So are Arsenal. So are Arsenal.
So are Arsenal. Yes, so are Arsenal.
What I will point out, actually, I was going to ask, do you want to know what happened last night or what the outcome was?
Do I want to know about the outcome of? Oh yeah, yes, please. What happened?
Leicester are top now. Yes.
So everything to play for.
Yes.
Everything to play for. Oh dear.
From Lawrence Fox to the Foxes, we've covered it all today.
We've done sport, we've done politics, and we've had a tiny little bit of crime fiction in the middle. So there we are.
Shall we go and see if a civil war is going to kick off?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say we're nothing if not eclectic.
I shouldn't be rubbing my hands at that, should I? Should we see if there's a civil war?
No, yes. For a moment there, you look like one of those extreme right-wing jocks
That's
that you
me.
get in the States. Well, let's hope there's no civil war. Let's hope
me.
the
QAnon
inauguration goes
Croft.
peacefully today, and let's hope that there is a new chapter beginning, a positive and healthy chapter in America, because we need that to be the case. Because if America is all right, then the ripples of that spread out across the world. There might be some people in China who Russia and disagree, and various other countries, but there we are.
And I'm looking forward to not having to watch CNN until 2:00 in the morning every night as well.
Don't talk to me about. I'm hooked on CNN.
A Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer.
What? Oh my goodness me! I'm up with the Dawn Show, and then it's Anderson Cooper, and do you know who one of my favourites is? John King.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
I've never known anyone speak as fast, any broadcaster speak as fast as John King, and make some sort of sense of what he's saying.
I talk quite fast, but I make no sense. So,
but I have. The only thing with CNN is you've got the huge long advertising breaks. Not that we get them over here. They cut to things like. They can't show they show one or two commercials, I think, online, but then they cut away to 30 minutes of calm, sort of.
Yes, and Richard Quest shouting at you.
Yeah,
CNN business traveller, and all that stuff.
Oh yes, the traveller who speaks like that. Yes, he's quite extraordinary, isn't he? But anyway, we must get him on the show sometime.
Right, yeah, we should. Yeah, turn his volume down.
Crime fiction travel destinations. I'll take you there. So I suppose that's it for this week, isn't it?
It is, yes. I was going to say we're going to go and do Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace, which is our after-show show for Partners in Crime, which is exclusive for patrons. So if you are a patron, do go and check that out. But yes, we're basically... I'm done. Stick a fork in me. We're nearly at 40 minutes. We've not done that in a while. So and
we haven't done that, but
I've got a ton of stories for Arsenic and Old Lace.
There were at least 5 minutes where you didn't have me, which I'm sure were by far and away the highlight of this particular podcast.
They were peaceful.
Yeah, well, I hope that doesn't upset everyone, and I hope the quality is acceptable, as you said, in these strange, tiring sort of. This isn't Zoom. What do we work on the podcast?
Well, a combination of things. One thing for video and different things for audio. And it's.
You are clever. I'm so glad I don't have to think about that
I'm
at all.
bankrupt now.
Cup of coffee and then come back for Arsenic and Old Lace. All right, buddy. See you soon. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be recording Arsenic now. Ta-ra.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Daws and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Faish. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.